In this video, let's take a look at the new ALTA NSPS 2021 minimum standards that Traverse PC supports in TPC Desktop 2022, out January of 2022. I brought up a sample survey that we include called Learn Least Squares, and I'm going to go ahead and select this Traverse just by highlighting it in the Traverses Manager. And I turned on the delineate option, which is right here, because I want you to see it in the drawing. And we're going to assume this is our boundary that we're going to certify with the ALTA. So let's just walk into this. The report is found in the least squares. So I'm going to come down and do a least squares network adjustment. I'm going to pick what I want out of this. And I'm actually analyzing the entire survey, but just reporting on this one boundary. So that's real critical to know that I'm going to create a network that gives me the greatest accuracy that I can for this boundary that I'm certifying. So I'm likely to have network points outside the boundary at times. It's not going to necessarily look like this example here, but you're going to set up a strong network. And I'm going to go ahead and solve that. This is important at the 95% confidence interval. So let's go ahead and just solve that. And it's okay that the chi-squared test failed. Now, before I do the report, I want to come into this dialog. This is new. So this is the ALTA dialog, and the first thing I want to do is select one or more traverses to report on. So I'm going to do the entire traverse, Traverse 1, which is one I selected and that I delineated here in the drawing. Here's my ALTA minimums, so 0.07 feet and then 50 parts per million, solved at the 95% confidence interval, and we saw that in the solve dialog here. We chose the 95. And then here are the two reports that are specified in the 2021 minimum standard. There's a test that uses the length of the semi-major axis of the air ellipses, and these would be for the points in that boundary. So A1 is a fixed point, but here's the air ellipses for points 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to use these air ellipses in test 1. And then test 2 is the standard deviation of distances between monuments. So here are 1, 2, 3, 4 courses, and we're going to use those distances. So we've selected those. Let's go to our report, step 3, and we're going to turn on this relative positional precision when we generate the report. And let's see what we get from that. So let's expand our report view over here. And up at the top of this, we have all our standard least squares solution information, including the standard deviations, of course, which are included in that first option for the ALTA. And then on the distances, so here's our distances, we've got our standard deviations, which are going to be used in the test number 2. So now, let's come down and look at the report itself. Here's the relative positional precision, RPP report. So this, we say this is the maximum allowable RPP based on the line of sight distance and 0.07 feet and 50 parts per million at 95% confidence level. Okay, and that the 95% confidence level is used for this solution. So here are the requirements in that minimum standard. Then here's test 1, and we come in and test the air ellipses, and we take a look at each one of them. So here were the 4 points in there on that boundary. Each one of them passed, so this test 1 passed. And that's how we report it. Test 1 passed, 4 points passed, 0 points failed. In the second test, we're actually testing the standard deviations of distances between monuments. So we've got A1 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to A1. And we see that each one of these standard deviations passed. So they were less than that 0.7 plus the parts per million. So 0.07 plus parts per million was applied to each course here. And then, of course, we tell us that test 2 passed for all 4 distances and that 0 distances failed. So I can select to do one or both of these tests for whichever boundary I select. And I can select one or more boundaries. And Traverse PC then will report that information for me in the report it generates for that least squares solution. So it's really simply how we meet the 2021 ALTA NSPS land title standard.